Okay, so now we're going to talk about some tips, ideas, and implementations for getting your materials together as you are beginning to plan out and think through what your students are going to be doing, what functions in a rehearsal is a student used to doing that they can do on their own without you by their side, without their peers by their side, that ultimately enables them to be successful. So I'm going to talk about 3 different types: digital, non-digital, and kind of like a hybrid, which technically non-digital, depending on your submission, would be a bit of a hybrid, I guess, as well. But I'm thinking like real old school. You don't need any technology to complete it. You just ultimately would need technology to submit it, and give you some thoughts on implementation for these. I'm also going to talk through 5 digital platforms / apps / websites that I could not live without in the classroom. And there are so many, and I could talk through all the things with you, but I really challenge you, like, pick 1, pick 2 that might be new to you to implement if you're not using any. If you're already using some and they work for you, we'll just keep using them. Nothing says you have to add on. If you want to add on, don't add on a cajillion. That's just more work for you and more confusing for students. I think that's one thing that I really learned is that when I began implementing I kind of always have, but when I, especially with some of these new apps within the last 5 years or so, began really working to implement more technology and more websites in my choir classroom, I was shocked at things that I thought would come naturally to students that they don't, and they didn't have any idea, or things that I thought were easy, I wasn't expecting them to have trouble with. And if you are not there to help them and walk them through some of this stuff, then you, in addition to not being able to help them and not being able to be there to walk through some of this stuff with them, you are not going to also see problems that they're going to have or ways in your instructions that you could have outlined it clearer, and then you're not able to know that for the future. So just a couple tips there for you. So let's first talk about non-digital materials that you can use. And the first thing with that is just their music. I think like that's the best non-digital material that you can begin to utilize as you are in this space and being aware of students that don't have a ton of online access. And so I hope that your students have their music. If they don't have their music, actually I saw a friend of mine, Emily with at Choir Campbell, was talking about an amazing scanner that she used to scan her music and send that out to students to use in this time, and that way they can still access it. I mean, I feel horrible for classes that met one day and that didn't know they weren't coming back the next, but I digress. So non-digital means of completing assignments. I'm a big believer in a couple things. So one is just like rehearsing their music on their own, right? There's some flaws with that. Nothing says they have to have a part track to be able to rehearse that. I think that can never be underestimated. But 2 non-digital means of implementing something that you could utilize are annotations or writing in your scores, and song sheets, which are a way to write about your scores. And I use these in my classroom diligently the last 5 years, and they were game changers for me on how I saw students interacting with the music. I learned so much about what I assumed that they knew versus what they actually knew, and it was a way for them to engage in the music without always having to be singing it. So I am going to include some materials here for you to think about how you could potentially implement annotations and song sheets for your students. And I've included guides that I've used in my classroom, and I encourage you to pluck 1 or 2 things from this that you can have your students begin to think about how they're marking in their music. So even if it's just like taking a score and saying like, there are X amount of measures in this song, there are these range of dynamics that the composer or publisher, depending on your piece, have put in for this piece. Literally just like writing out the text in a poetic format is an amazing way for you to have students like interact with their music in a non-digital form. And the way I always explain this to my students is like the composer started with the text in that format, right? Like the text that we sing in the music does not look like what the composer started with. And so I think it's cool for them to think about that flip and realize, it is actually good for me to look at the text without all of the mumbo jumbo of all of the music on the page. So I'll talk even more about that when we get to rehearsal scores, but you will see annotations and song sheets there for you. That you can utilize. I also did a presentation on using song sheets and annotations for the North Carolina Music Educators Conference in 2017, and I'm going to upload that audio here in a bit if you want to get real nerdy and listen back to that presentation. It is there for you to be able to access, and I think I'll also try to upload my files for you so you can see that if you just kind of want to go down a rabbit hole and see that. So those are some non-digital things, and y'all, you could like literally teach for weeks just on that almost, because there is so much for you to uncover within that. And again, I'll get more into that as we talk about rehearsal of scores. But I wanted to leave that as a non-digital material that you can begin to think about you might be able to implement within your classroom. Next, let's talk about some hybrid things. So I call hybrids of like recording things and being able to upload them to a site or like homework that they might be able to upload, as well as listening to certain videos and then responding to those videos, whether it's like written out on a sheet of paper or whether it is responding on a Google Doc, in which case it would be a solely digital activity. And I've included here a mini template that you could utilize if you want a student to watch a rehearsal from someone and give feedback as to what, like it's a 2-part form. The first is they literally just go through and say like, first 5 minutes, this is what was happening in the rehearsal. Next 10 minutes, this is what was happening in the rehearsal. And if you're struggling to find some rehearsals that you could use for this activity, I am still in the process of like gleaning some good rehearsals that I've recorded over the years that you can utilize and use and say like, this was really good and this was really bad. I mean, don't like slaughter me on all the bad stuff, but there's a million things you can improve from my rehearsals, and I do not mind if you utilize those, and they'll be on YouTube so you can send them out to your students. But that's a cool way where they can like watch this recording and then actually handwrite their responses, and whether they digitally upload those to you or whether they just give them to you at the end, that's a possibility. And then there's also these hybrid things of them singing and then recording them singing and uploading them to you or something like that. I think that's a really cool activity I did with my singers a lot, and there's so much you can assess with that. You can not just check the quality of their voice, you can check if they're doing solfege, if they're doing hand signs, how are they standing, what is their expression, all of that kind of stuff. I think it's really imperative that we begin to teach singers how to show up on videos online, and that is a skill of teaching in and of itself. And I would oftentimes do video recordings at the beginning of a year of them singing just major scales, because I don't want them thinking, sometimes like if we go in to say, all right, record yourself singing this thing, sometimes it's just bad. right? And I don't want to be listening to a bunch of bad attempts at singing things. It's kind of like a waste on their time and a waste on my time, because I haven't like established these building blocks to getting to them recording, singing their parts. In my opinion, you might be different. That's totally fine. But like a simple scale is something that I hope that they're able to sing. It's like saying their ABCs, right? And so if I have videos of them singing scales, that's an easy thing that they can be able to do and upload and not feel as nervous about recording themselves, especially if you don't typically have them record themselves and submit it to YouTube. It can be super daunting. And then finally, so moving on, is digital things. There are 5 digital platforms I want to talk to you about that are my be all, end all. Okay, y'all, so let's jump on and first, super quick, talk about Google Drive, Google Forms. I know that 1 million people use Google Classroom. I also know that 1 million people do not use Google Classroom. And so if you use Google Classroom, I'm going to assume that you are good with this, and just sit tight with me for like a minute, and then I'm going to jump on to the next thing. But here's my 2 cents. If you do not currently use Google Classroom to coordinate with students, and other teachers at your school do not use Google Classroom, in my opinion, now is not the time to try to start using Google Classroom. There's a learning curve. You do not know what your singers understand or do not understand within this, and like it's just not worth it. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. That being said, what I would do if my singers and I were not used to using Google Classroom, and if your students use Google Classroom with other teachers, well, now might be and they feel comfortable with it, now might be the time for you to pick up a pony, and I don't know what that means, and start utilizing it yourself. But here are some ways that I love Google Classroom. One, just like general questions, and I know you can do assessments through it and stuff like that. If you're doing video recordings, right, which at some point, if you've never had students do video recordings, which I know a ton of people have, but let's be real, a ton of people haven't. If you have not been using video recordings and you want to start having students record things to you, like one of my favorite ways to collect video recordings from students is once they upload it to YouTube, and they should be using their student accounts, right, through their student emails, so that privacy and all that jam is protected. They could also, though, I guess, like link to a Google Drive image too if they want. Then I love Google Forms to collect this, because then when I go to responses, all I have to do is like click, 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 click down to listen to them and to do that sort of thing. That was one clunkiness of Google Classroom I didn't like. I'd have to like close this student, open this student, close this student, open this student. And I really wanted to hear instead of navigate all that, but maybe I'm just crazy. So just a couple things to think about. I also kept the same assignment form for all of the video submissions. And then what I would do is go through and I would say like student first name, and then student last name. All of my students had numbers, so I would give them that. I would also make sure I put the class. And so you want to make sure, in my opinion, that I would do a multiple choice, so they pick their class, right? The least they have to type, the better. Then I would also do a student number, I might even do like a student number drop down or something like that. But this is, in my opinion, I keep saying that, this is like one of my highest recommendations, is when students are submitting an assignment, I like them all in the same place for all my classes, so I can just go in and check them quickly and easily. I go through and I have them click which assignment it is. So previously I talked about, if you need a video recording of a student, the easiest way to have them do it and to start is to just sing like a major scale. So then I would say major scale. And then I might have like my next one, like assignment number 2, if you number your assignments. Assignment number 2, minor scale. It's nice to label them, right? And here's the benefit. keep it simple. If they have one sheet that they go to turn in everything, then it's not only easier for you to grade, but it's also easier for them to find. So if you say all of your video submissions are due on this page and you link it somewhere, then that is going to be super, super helpful. Yeah, so that's that. One other thing that I would do, make sure you hit some of these required things. You can also add, there's a million other better tutorials on Google that you can utilize, but that is just my favorite. It's my jam. Now, this next thing is like, oh my gosh, I adore Flatio so much. And you're going to see a bunch of different things I'm working on here for the teaching membership. So just disregard those. If you are unfamiliar with Flatio, it is a cloud-based, meaning it's like Google, and it actually integrates with Google. It is a cloud-based music notation software. And I just think it's the best. It is the most intuitive. It is amazing. And I totally challenge you to go right now, like literally even maybe just stop this video, or maybe you watch it to the end and then go check out Flat, because I can't say enough things about it. In fact, I have a podcast episode coming out on Monday the 17th. Excuse me, that would be the 16th. On Monday the 16th, that talks about, it's an interview with the founders. So that's a little fun side note. Here is why I love Flatio. It's just easy. It's insanely intuitive. And if something is not intuitive, you just go and ask them, and then they will, or not ask them, you ask Google, and they have it all laid out for you. So one of the biggest things that I learned when I started having kids use Flatio was again, things I thought were intuitive were not. And again, depending on your type of singers is also, I could see a broad range of usabilities. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. A broad range of skills when it came to adaptation to this. In my opinion, the best starting example for you to introduce Flatio to your students is to have them take a piece that they are singing or working on and copy the vocal line into Flatio, right? And this sounds simple, y'all. You're like, oh, well, that's easy, blah, 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 blah. I want you to think about all of the skills that they need to know to be able to just copy their voice line into Flatio. So let's say they do that. I'm just going to pick like a voice lead here. And it adds here, which is similar layout to Finale, at least when I used to use it. I don't even use Finale anymore, anything else. So a couple things, like here's their voice part. All of your landing stuff is up here. And then if you want to have a metronome count in when you're playing stuff back, all of the different things you can do. There's just so much. But let's say like the student sings, like puts in their little song, and they can click it in. Okay, beautiful. There's my little piece. I'm going to end it like that. Again, just think about this, right? Like if a student is going to put their voice part into this, you have to make sure they're doing the right clef. You have to make sure they're doing the right key signature, time signature. You can leave tempo in there or take it out. You also, like, they're literally like checking things in. You're hearing all of this. You can have them add in dynamics, articulations, all the things, and they are practicing their music, but they're doing this. But then this is probably like one of my favorite things. You just go up here to this little cloud thing, and you can download. Now, even this in and of itself is just amazing. You can download all these different files, so they could print out their own part. Here's all the different things, but like they can make their own voice part, their own practice track. Let me just say that again. They can make their own practice track that they created. Gone are the days of you putting their parts in. No way. Here we have this amazing like thing. So that's awesome. You can also export it to Soundtrap. Soundtrap is another really cool thing. It's been several years since I've used it, so I'm sure it's even cooler now, but Soundtrap is another cool little thing. So anyways, that is Flatio. I could I just adore it. It's just the best. The people that are doing it are amazing. They have a deal like all of the other technologies out there for what to do. You could just make your life off of Flatio, and it's the bomb. So, and now here's the last thing. That's not the truth. It's the next to the There's three other things. Musictheory.net. It's been around for like 5,000 years. I mean, I used it when I first started teaching. If you haven't known about it, I'm sorry. We as a community have let you down because it is the bee's knees. I still think it's just one of the most simple, intuitive ways for you to practice things. So there's theory lessons set up here on the left, and then there are interactive games that you can do to set up on the right. And it says download on the App Store. They can download on the App Store. There is a price of $3.99, but don't be fooled by this. You can also, on your phone too, go to exercises and find awesome, cool things here, like note identifications. And you can go up here and up to the top right corner and change all these different things. I have found that when you're starting stuff with this, like I start super basic and small, and then have students add on. And you can do challenges. They can challenge each other. It's just amazing. I love musictheory.net. The next thing I want to talk about is YouTube. Like, duh, YouTube is out there. But I just want to encourage you. One of my favorite features to do is to make a playlist for people to go in and access songs. So, like, I have a choir called 6 Weeks Sing. So, like, here is 6 Weeks Sing, right? But what I've done in it, in addition to videos about what it is I have gone through and made a playlist. Like, here is our playlist of all of the songs that we're singing. So they're all in one place, and your singers aren't filtering through all of the different things that you're wanting them to hear. And you might know this exists. And so I'm not trying to insult your intelligence if you do know this exists, but a lot of people don't. And I think it's just a really great opportunity now for you to curate some videos, because there are 5,000 million out there for your students to look at. Okay, I've saved one of the other best ones for last, and that is Meludia. I don't know if you've ever heard of Meludia. I literally don't even know how I found it. Actually, jumping back here, maybe I found it on the internet, but it's a French-based thing, and it is a mobile app. Oh my goodness, I'm getting all the things. It is a mobile app for you to be able to like teach students to use music, and it's just the bee's knees. But so here's an example. So you go to Meludia, you can sign in. Oh, look, it still remembers me. So you can be able to create an account. And it has all of these like 5 different modes for you to be practicing. So if you are a big sound before sight person, this is gonna be your jam. I love to do this, right? So you eventually like do this little spiral up, and this is an example of some of it. Is it stable or unstable? Yay! Yay! I mean, I'm just adore. I could do this for forever. Yay! Okay, so, and then you can restart. You can play through things. I just think it's the bomb. And so that was even just on stability and instability. So I think you also have to go through these before you can go through, no, you can click on the others, but you have to start at the beginning. So, ooh, how many percussive hits do you hear? I'm a little nervous doing this in front of you. think this, I forgot to be counting. Okay, you don't need to watch me play this. Sorry, I'm getting into it. I will probably stop recording this and go through and do more of these. So those are 5 materials that I would utilize online that I tried to be a bit atypical to for some of these on things that you could utilize within thinking through and planning through your rehearsal, right? So, like if you want people to be working on their scores, then when you get to that rehearsal standpoint, then you're going to be going through and utilizing Flat, maybe utilizing Google to have them submit stuff, using song annotation sheets, using or song sheets and annotations, etc. If you are wanting students to do some listening and literacy aspects, then musictheory.net, Meludia are awesome. If you're wanting people to do some warm-ups or just like overall listening, YouTube is gonna be your jam. And if you need to do some formal assessments or written things, also you have Google Drive, forms, classrooms, all the things as an opportunity as well. You can also utilize all these in different ways. Again, I just wanted to give you 5 digital materials, several non-digital materials, and some ideas for non-hybrid or for some hybrid materials as well that you can utilize, that as you begin to structure and think, what do my students have? What do they need? What are they going to need to be successful to meet my expectations for this? That you can ultimately be able to help and serve them. Okay, thanks so much for sticking with me, and I will be releasing more videos tomorrow. There's also some sheets over there. If you have any specific questions or feedback or whatever, please let me know. I really, as you can probably tell, nerd out on this stuff because I love music and I love learning and I love choir and I love helping teachers and helping students. So I'd love to know. Thanks.